Hi everybody, in this next series of videos we're going to be working with macros. Macros in essence will save you time in how you work with your computer. So the common everyday tasks that you go through with some of your worksheets can be automated and actually done in a much quicker time frame. One of their more popular uses or applications is when it comes to formatting your worksheet. So where you have a situation where maybe you select an area and you go there and you kind of click and click and click onto, just all kinds of different formats that you want to apply to that area that you've selected, is a pretty easy thing to do. But if it's something that you do over and over and over again on different worksheets, you might find it be a little bit of a nuisance. So what you can do with a macro is take all of those formatting commands or steps and put them into one single command that you can execute with a click of the mouse. So what that means is that you could take a macro, put in, let's say, the 15 different format clicks that you might have gone through to make it look a certain way, and you can take that and in the future select a different area and click a button and bingo, it runs those 15 commands in a blink of the eye. Now there are other uses for macros as well, and that is to actually create brand new commands that normally don't exist in Excel. We're going to be covering that in latter videos. And you can also use macros to create brand new function formulas that don't normally exist in Excel to begin with. So very powerful stuff. Now in order for you to create your first macro, what we need to do is bring up a little toolbox which we call the developer tab. And that's usually something that is not available on your machine right off the bat. It's hidden. It's just not displayed. You'll see it on mine right here. This is it here. But the way that you would get it is that you normally would click on to File. You would go down to Options, and you would go into the Customize ribbon. And all you do is just make sure that the ribbon button is checked there. All right, that's all you got to do. You have that checked on there, you hit OK, this will appear, and there you go. Now there's two different ways that you can actually create a macro. One way would be for you to sit down and type in all of the Visual Basic code that would need to go into making your macro do whatever you wanted it to do. That takes some knowledge. I don't think it's something that most people want to learn initially. So what would be the other way then? It would be where we actually record the macro. Now here's how it works. What we're going to be doing to create our first bunch of macros is we're going to go in and turn on what is called the macro recorder, and then we'll perform all of the steps. As we're performing the steps, the program is recording those steps and converting them into the code that the macro needs to run. We're going to focus on recording in this set here, but in latter videos you'll see how we insert the code to create these different macros. Pretty cool stuff. But in any event though, for where we're at right now, the next thing that you do is you're going to set out to record a macro, let's say, right? So you have to kind of plan it and say to yourself, okay, so what I want to be able to do is take a selection that I make, on the worksheet, and then apply a number of different, let's say, formats to it, all right? So before I do anything, I'm going to select an area that I want to perform each of these steps on, and have that be recorded. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to click on to the Use Relative References. Now what this does is it makes the macro perform later on the area that you selected rather than the area that you had selected when you had created the macro to begin with. So if you're doing any kind of formatting type macros, you want to make sure that you've got this pushed in and turned on before you go to record the macro, okay? So that's the second step. So we selected the area, we turn this on, and then we go over here to record macro. Now the first thing we need to do is give the macro a name, okay? Now the name cannot have any spaces in it and cannot have any hyphens in it. You can have an underscore if you want, but I usually prefer to do it this way. So let's just say that this particular macro is going to format my main title. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call this one main title. So as you can see, I just made the first letter capital to make it look like it's, you know, even though it's one word, it kind of looks like it's easier to read that way. So that's one thing. Now later on when we launch the macro, in other words, we start the macro and play it on something, you can have it run by hitting a certain set of keys on the keyboard, and that would be determined from here. So what you normally would want to do is you would click onto here, you'd hold down the shift key, hit the letter T, let's say in this case, because we're going to do a title, let's say, right? Now the reason why I did the shift and not just left it with just the controls, because there's pretty much the whole alphabet is already taken up with Control A, Control B, Control C, and they actually do things within your programs. Because we don't want to interfere with that, we just give it an extra key because we know that there's no other, you know, commands out there that run with a Control Shift. Okay, and then, you know, in this case, the letter T. So that's why we do that. It's an optional thing. You don't really need to use it. Like I said before, we're going to be launching it from a button that we'll create off of the quick access toolbar. All right, so keep that in mind. All right, so the other thing is that you want to make sure that this macro is going to be contained. You know, the code of it will be contained in the personal macro workbook. Now, what that is, it's a hidden file that all your macros are stored in, and it always runs every time you start up Excel. It's always open. So later on, when you go to run a macro on a particular worksheet, it doesn't matter which one it is. It'll always run because it's coming from the personal macro workbook. I say this because as a default, this usually comes up as this workbook. And what that means is if the code is just stored in here, then later on if you're trying to run the macro on another file, you won't be able to. All right. I mean, technically you can, but what you'd have to do is have this one open in order to run it on the other file. That's just not something you want to do. So it's much easier just to go in there and say, hey, put it into the personal macro workbook, right? Then the other thing is, do you want to have a description? That's if maybe somebody else might be using a machine, or maybe you might forget what this meant. As far as the name goes, you can put a description in there. We're not going to bother doing that, but that's something you can do if you want. And then once you've done that, you're going to go ahead and hit OK. So now the macro is currently recording. There's nothing to record yet, but it's recording. You'll know that also because down here at the bottom left-hand corner is the stop button. So later on when we get done recording our macro, we'll just click on to either that button there to stop it, or in the developer tab, we can click on to stop recording there as well. All right, so the whole idea of creating this first macro, I want to have it so where later on, if I'm in a worksheet and I select a title area, you know, like a range, I can have it formatted a certain way. So if anything, what's great about this is it's going to allow you to quickly do these kind of things and to keep it consistent so that it doesn't matter what worksheet you're working on, you can actually run the macro to do this for the title, let's say, and it's going to be exactly the same as it always been. You won't have a chance of, you know, forgetting to put a certain format in there. All right, so what are we going to do? We're going to go back over to home here, just like that. And let's see, what can we do here? Well, let's say we want to make it bold, all right? Let's say that we want to make it centered, and in other words, we want to merge these cells here and then center the label within that. So we can actually go here to the merge and center, and that'll take care of that part. We can also go in there and maybe change the font. Now, what I like to do is have this with what we call the papyrus font. It's kind of a classic scripting type font. And it's this one right here. Click onto that. That looks pretty good. And then we can also increase the size. So all these things that we're doing right now are being recorded by the macro, being converted into code so that the macro can run it. All right. So you can go back and forth. You can, do something like this, go up like this. Doesn't matter. It's all going to be part of the macro, and it's going to run instantaneously, so you won't even see all those little steps that you did. It'll just go boom, it's done, just like that. Let's say we also want to change the color, so we'll give it like a dark blue here. And we also want to put a let's just say we're going to put a thick border on the bottom of this. You won't see it until we click off of it later on, but you'll see what it is then. But we'll click onto here. We'll click on to thick bottom border. There it goes. We can also maybe change the background color. So we can use a little paint bucket here, and we can find maybe a color that we'll go with maybe green. There it goes. I also want to make the row a little bit taller. Now I don't want to go into here and drag the border down, because that's going to be part of the macro, and it's going to think, or it's going to know in the macro when it goes to run it, that it's always going to go to row 1 here and make it taller. And it might be that maybe on the macro or on the worksheet that you're working with at the time and applying the macro, maybe your title is on row 2, and therefore it's not going to work right because it'll go back to row 1. So not good. All right, so how do we get around that? Well, what we'll do is we'll go up here into the Format button. This is also in the Home tab. Go to Home. We'll go to Format. We'll go to the row height. All right, and right now it's set for about 41. We'll make it, let's say, 55. Enter that in, and there it is. And then what we'll do is we'll also make this centered between the top and bottom. So I'll hit this button right here, and that makes it centered. And then I look at it and I say, I don't really like that much space in there. I think what I'll do is I'll just make it so where whatever size it is, it'll be perfectly to that height. So what we can do is we'll just go back into Format again, and I'll just click on to Auto Fit Row Height, and then it'll do that for me. So I think that'll do. So now we're all done with this. So what I'm going to do is just hit the down arrow key, and that's going to be part of the macro. So when it gets done, doing its thing later on when we run it, at the very end it'll go down, 1 row and kind of present itself. So now we want to stop the macro recorder. As I said before, we can either click on to this guy down here, or if we go into the Developer tab, we can just click on to Stop Recording. So I'll click on to Stop Recording, and that's it. Now to see what the code looks like of this macro, which you can, and you don't have to do this, but I'm going to show it to you. You can click on to where it says Visual Basic here, all right? And then you go over here to this personal area here, and you click on the plus, just like that. And then we're going to go ahead and click on to macro or modules there, and then you'll see module 1. If you double click that, there it is. So there is our macro that we put together. Pretty slick. So imagine having to do this instead of being able to record it. So a lot easier to record it, obviously. Now you'll notice that there's one down here where it says font selection 14, 16, 18, 20. It's going back and forth like that, right? That was us hitting the up, you know, sizing, and it kept on making it either bigger, and then we made it down smaller a couple times and whatever. That's all in there. We don't really need all that, all right? But it doesn't matter. It'll run just fine, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what I mean by it recording, like every step, everything that you do, that's all shown in there. All right, I'm just going to close that up now. It'll take me back to here again. Now, to run the macro, what we would do is we would find, let's say one of our worksheets. I just have another one up here for us. And let's say that I wanted to run that macro using this title here, okay? So what we'll do is we'll just kind of select this range, just like that. Then what we do is we go back and we click on to macros. This is in the developer tab. Click on the macros, and you'll see your macro pop up there, and that's the one we want. So you can either double click it or click onto it once and hit run, either one. I'll just double click it, and there it goes. So that is pretty slick. All right, so let's go back to our original here. Now I want to do another macro that will format a subtitle area, such as these headings right here, okay? So the first thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and select this range here, okay? We'll go to our developer tab, make sure that this is turned on, which it should be. It usually stays on the whole time until you turn it off, you know, from the last time. So then we'll go here to record macro. And on this one, we'll put in maybe something called like maybe subtitle, something like that. I'm not going to worry about the shortcut key. And then we've got the personal macro workbook. That's great. That's what we want. We'll hit OK. And there we go. You'll see that it's recording because it shows that marker at the bottom and shows stop recording up here. So what do we want to do with this? Well, let's first of all maybe go over to the Home tab. And I think first of all we want to make it centered. You know, all the labels there. So I'll hit the center button there. Everything goes centered. We'll make it bold. We'll change the color maybe to a, oh, we could go with purple. What the heck? So we'll do purple. All right. We're also going to make it so where it's centered between the top and bottom. So I'm going to do that as well. And I'm also going to tell it that I want the row height to be a certain height as well. See? Now remember, like last time, I said that we don't want to do it from here as usual, but instead we'll just go into Home, go over here to Format, go to Row Height, and say, well, right now it's at 17, maybe we'll make it 21. Hit the Enter key, and that looks good. The other thing I like to do is put another dark border underneath that part, right? So we're going to go back up to the drop-down button here. We'll go with our thick bottom border, and that takes care of that part. I'd also like to put a light gray background in here. So I'm going to go over here to the bucket, hit the drop-down arrow, find a light gray, maybe something like that, click it. I think that'll do good. I think we'll make the size as well just a little bit bigger. And what I can actually do here, let's just say I want to make it 13.5. Okay, right now it's set for 13. So I'll just go up into that little slot there, and I'll just type in 13.5, right? Hit the Enter key, and that makes it just a little bit bigger. Probably didn't even notice it. Didn't even look like it got any much bigger. I'll just go with 14 instead. No, there's 14. Okay, that looks good. Then I say, that does look a little thick, and it's a little distracting. So I think maybe what I'm going to do is change or turn off the bolding. So I'll just hit the bold button again. That'll turn it off and leave it like that. I think that'll look good. And I think that's it. So now the last step is going to be, I'm just going to hit the down arrow. There it goes. That looks pretty good, I think. All right, now this time what I'm going to do is we're going to, well, let's first of all hit the stop button here. So we'll stop it, stop the macro, just like that. All right, now what I want to do is I want to be able to run the macro from just a click of the mouse. I don't want to have to keep on going into developer and go to my list of macros over here and launch it that way. What I'd rather do is put it as an icon up here in the quick access toolbar. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the little drop down arrow here. Then I'm going to go down to the more commands, go over here to the, we're in the quick access toolbar. So in this area here, we're going to change this to listing out our macros, and there they are. And the one that I want to work with, that I want to put on, well, actually we'll do both of them just for the heck of it. So I'll pick this one first, the main title, double click that, there it is, and then I'll hit modify, and I can give it a different icon. So maybe I'll go with this one right here. So that's my first one, okay? Now the one that we just got done doing, which is the subtitle, we're going to double click that, and that goes in there. And again, we'll click onto it, modify it, pick something, hit OK, and there we go on that one. Now once we've done all that, we'll go ahead and hit OK, and now you'll see them all up there. All right, now I'm going to go over to my other worksheet here. I'm going to select this range here. I'm then going to click on to this icon here, which is representing the subtitle. Click onto that, and there we go. All right, now the next macro that we're going to be doing is we're going to work with the formatting our numbers. Okay. Now, usually, formatting your numbers. Let's say you want to make them a comma format or something like that. We could just easily just hit this button here, and that takes care of it. But we might want to maybe not only do that, but maybe a few other formats as well. So having a macro that will take all those into account will make it easier for us to apply, later on. So we're going to first of all do is we're going to select the area that we want to format. Just select that whole area there. Now keep in mind, when you're doing this, we're just selecting this area here to just have something to record the macro off of, right? I mean, there's going to be times where you're going to be selecting half of that amount or a fifth of that amount, and it's not going to matter. The macro is still going to work perfectly on it, okay? So we're not really telling the macro what area to format, but rather we're telling it what we want to do on the area that we've selected. All right. Okay. So we select that whole area. Now we'll go back into the developer. We'll go back into our record macro. And we're going to call this one comma color. All right, because we're going to do some coloring to it. And it's on the personal macro workbook. That's perfect. Hit OK. All right. So now we'll go back into the home tab. We'll go to the comma. Do that first. All right. Now understand what it's done so far is if I go back down and just point to one of the numbers here, it's putting a comma in the number, but it's also doing a 0.00. And because of all that added, character, we got like 4 added characters in there, the column isn't wide enough to display it. So we know that's what's going on behind there. So we're not going to worry about that right now. But what we're going to do is we're going to change the formatting so that it's no decimal places. So we'll go back up to here and click that a couple times. All right. And then we go back to here, and you can see now it just shows it as just 22,000, as would be the rest. Now, the other thing I want to do is make it so where it will auto adjust the column width so that it perfectly fits the whole number in there, and we won't have those pound symbols in there. Normally what you would do is you go up here and you would double click these borders here, and that would take care of it. But we don't want to do that because that's going to mess up the macro. So what we'll do instead is we'll just go over here to the Format tab. We'll go to where we've got the column width, and we'll tell it that we want to do an auto column width on those selected columns, see? So when we click onto that, boom, it takes care of it for us. And then what I'd also like to do is change the color of the text here. So I'm going to go back in here and change the color to something near black, but just a little bit off, okay? So maybe something like that. Now I can maybe click onto italic to see if I like that. And, well, I guess that might do. That'd be up to you if you wanted to do that or not. So we'll just leave it on there. All right, so I think that's about it. I might even, go as far as centering between the top and bottom. You can see how it kind of lifted up there a little bit. So that might be good. Make it look a little bit better there. Okay, so that's all that I want with this one. So I'm just going to hit the down arrow key first. Okay, now we get that. And then we need to turn off the macro. So we'll click on our button down at the bottom here. And there it's off. Now we'll go ahead and we'll put that macro into our quick access toolbar up here. So we'll click on that little drop down. More commands. Change this to macros. And then we'll find our comma color. Point to that one, double click it. And then we'll modify it. Give it something there. Hit OK. There we go. Now when I go to run it, so I'll go back over to our other experiment here. I'll select that range, right? Go back up there and hit the 8 ball, and boom, there it goes. And you can see I also made the worksheet just a little bit wider, but there it is. Looks pretty good. Okay, we're going to do one more macro here for this video. Got lots more coming up, I'll tell you that. All right, anyway, so I want to do another macro that will take any kind of a decimal situation that I have and convert it into the comma format and a few extra things as well. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to select that range just like that. Then we're going to go back into our developer, and then we'll go back into the record macro, right? And we'll call this one maybe DECPCT, like decimal to percent. And again, everything else is okay here, so we'll hit OK on that. And we'll go back to the Home tab. We'll go over here and hit our comma format, or not comma, I'm sorry, the percentage format there. And we get that. And we also want to maybe give it a couple extra decimals. So in this case, we'll do 1, 2, something like that. So that's pretty much how we want ours to look. All right. So that saves you a little time. I mean, over having to do it yourself by hand. All right. The other thing is I want to change the color. So in this case, oops, wrong one. In this case, maybe we'll go with a maybe like a dark blue, and we'll make it bold as well. All right. And I think that's it. So then we'll go ahead and hit the down arrow key. All right. We'll stop our macro recorder. And then we'll go back quickly up to the quick access setup and do more commands. Change that to macros. And now in this one, we're going to go with the decimal percent. So we double click that. That brings it over here. Hit modify. Give it a look. Hit OK there, and OK, and there we've got it. So now, there it is. So now we'll go back over to our other sheet here. We'll select that range. Click onto our little silhouette there, and there we go. And just so you know too, when we had put that macro together, we did all those steps. There's one step that I left out that I didn't really mean not to put in there, but I'll just show you to after the fact here. What we could have done with this is, I'll just do it on this one. Well, I'll just do it here. What I could have done along with all the other steps was that you'll notice how the decimal or the percentage here is right up against the border there. Whereas these guys are not. These have a little bit of a margin in there, all right? And that's because this is what they call a counting style. That's what most of these are up here, except for the percentage. And so it gives you a little gap in there. So what I should have done at the very last moment was to show you to use the indent button, or to apply it. Now, normally the indent pushes things to the right, but when things are as far to the right as they can be, when you go and hit the indent, it actually bounces off the wall and comes back like that. Now, in that case, you'll notice how it didn't really do exactly what I wanted to do. What we would have to do is hit the align right first. Let me just undo that a couple times there. All right, so we would select that area, confirmed that it's on the right hand side, so that's why I'm hitting this again, and now it's definitely on the right hand side. And then you go back and you click onto this increase indent, and it brings it over, and that looks pretty good. So that would have been something that you might would have wanted to add to the macro, but I'm not going to start this video over again just to add that. So I'll just tell you that. So hopefully this gives you some ideas as far as setting out and maybe doing some macros on your own. We've got plenty of videos, beyond this one that I want you to take a look at if you could. Give you some really good ideas as to all the different kinds of things you can do, and plus too, showing you a lot of the advanced stuff as well that you can do with macros. So just sit back and just watch video after video, and by the time you get done, you're going to have a really good understanding of how macros are created. You're going to have a really good understanding of Visual Basic programming. It'll be great. You'll love it. But nonetheless,